Good evening, class. I'd like to share a story. About 10 years ago, I was a deputy sheriff and I received a call. It was late at night and we were headed to a house about a report of a person who was very agitated, walking around, pacing back and forth, and making his arms move at a rapid pace. The person who called the 911 center said that the person could possibly be on drugs or was maybe involved in a domestic incident. I was not the first unit to arrive, um, and when I was en route to the call, it kind of dawned on me that I was familiar with the address. And so I realized that at the time I was dating my wife, and that's where she was currently staying with one of her nephews, who was a nonverbal. The first unit that arrived on scene experienced a young man who was acting very strangely, didn't want to speak to them, but was speaking, was saying words and cursing, making strange movements with his arms, making varied expressions with his face, and they're about to go what I call hands on and arrest the person. Well, as soon as I got there, I realized it was my soon to be nephew who was experiencing a traumatic episode due to something that wasn't going his way in the house. And my comrades failed to realize that he was autistic and had what they call Fragile X, which is a condition that includes nonverbal behavior. So it just made me think that if I didn't get there, if I didn't realize what had happened and who that person was, then my nephew, his name was Dylan, could have been arrested or could have gotten hurt. And just due to the fact that the arriving units didn't fully understand what to do or to recognize certain characteristics when it comes to nonverbal behavior. And that's why I want to do my speech today. So, some of the points that I will make today is going to focus mostly on the nonverbal diagnosis of autism and post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, which some of you are familiar with. And these are probably some of the more common nonverbal behavior that first responders might come across. So when we first speak about autism, it was something that I was not aware of until I met my wife, who had a son who was autistic, and Fragile X syndrome, which is a genetic disorder that affects a person's mental capacity, which in my stepson's case, he has the mental capacity of no more than a pre-K level. So along with that, he has autism, which he displays many characteristics which I consider nonverbal. He will say certain words, maybe phrases, but he cannot hold a simple conversation with somebody, and you have to kind of figure out what he's feeling and what he wants or what he needs, and which falls into a nonverbal category. And I have learned through many resources, and I'm going to show you the first resource that I have, and it was shared to me, is the Autism Speaks Foundation. They have their own website, and it's a great resource where you can tap into many of the aspects of autism and get a first-hand view of what to deal with, what to look for, and how to understand what a person with autism goes through. So my first visual aid is going to be my resource of Autism Speaks, which I can show you right there. That's the website. Excuse me for its reverse, but it's autismspeaks.org, and it's a great resource to fully understand what autism is about and how it affects a lot of Americans. A second nonverbal behavior that I like to focus on is post-traumatic stress disorder, and that is PTSD. And some of you are familiar with that. It's been in the news. It is affecting a lot of military veterans coming back from the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I have seen in the news where certain people experience PTSD, have going through some of these nonverbal episodes, and they encounter first responders. And a lot of times, the first responders are not aware that this person is having some kind of traumatic disorder due to PTSD, and the person ends up getting hurt or getting arrested. And I feel like if maybe they had a little better understanding and some more training, they could further assist that person in dealing with his problems than just taking him to jail, which is another focus here. And one resource that I like to share that I actually experienced through my department was the Crisis Intervention, or CIT, training that was provided by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and is also provided by the Georgia Public Safety Training Center. And it is a great training tool. It's a class where you learn all kinds of dealings and information about PTSD, autism, and especially nonverbal behavior, and how to better understand that without having to go use an arrest or maybe, unfortunately, some kind of physical, hands-on encounter with them. And this is a great webpage, Crisis Intervention Training by the GBI, gbi.org, Crisis Intervention Team Training. It's a great, I believe it is a great tool that I think at least one person in every first responder agency should have. And that's one case where I believe that it could really help first responders deal with people with nonverbal characteristics and behavior. Another one that I learned was a great one was the Brain and Behavior Foundation. It also provides great resources on dealing with people with post-traumatic stress disorder. And one of my solutions I feel that can come to my desire to get this training out is when it comes to my wife. She was a teacher at the time, and she was able to provide the local agencies with training and understanding when it comes to autism, nonverbal behavior, and post-traumatic stress disorder. And she was able to provide it to the first responders as law enforcement and emergency medical personnel. And it was a great way for all the community to come together and hopefully deal with people that are coming more common with nonverbal characteristics, and we can deal with them better than just having a negative encounter. And hopefully I can share some of that information with you today. Thank you.